Welcome, everybody, to KC Happy Hour, episode number 49, which means next week, roughly the anniversary of our show. The last time the US PKS Series went to Road America was right around that time we kicked things off. We'll have episode 50 to recap the big event, of course, coming this weekend, 225 plus pre-entries. My name's Andrew Clemens, your guys' host here. We'll go ahead and bring in the rest of our full-time crew that joins us on a regular basis. Of course, Aaron Hackmeister, my right-hand man on Happy Hour, joins us here tonight. We've got Dalton Haynes here, who's joining us full-time on the show as his driving career takes a little bit of a break, but not a full one because he was racing not too long ago and has some more hopefully on the schedule. Caleb Smock in what is sadly announced his final year in the booth with us, besides maybe some special guest reoccurrences, joins us as well. And Emery Lida, who's been coming on strong as another one of our on-air personalities, joins us here tonight. A lot to talk through on the events here, guys. Why don't we kick things off going a week and a half back here. Caleb will have you walk us through the Texas Sprint Racing Series event. Obviously, you were down there doing some commentary with Tristan Farber, his first time at a classic racetrack in North America.
Yeah, it was a old school throwback bull ring, if you want to say. Good numbers all the way through. The master class for KA 100 put on a good show, which, as we know, it's been lacking a little bit. The masters class has. A couple of scary moments that they've had there with the racing that happened with both, I think it was 206 Cadet, also 206 Senior. Thankfully, everyone was okay. I think you told me before the incident that happened with 206 Senior, there may have been a little bit of an injury, so hopefully get back in a cart. But good numbers, over 200 entries, which we like to see. As you said, it's a classic throwback track. It raced really well. They're experimenting with the Rhino liner, which we've seen a little bit across the U.S. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. I think it's a little bit on the dangerous side because of how much grip they have. On the hairpins, carts were biking, getting on two wheels. A couple of them was flipped over. So, I mean, overall, it was a good event with the good numbers, even with the heat. So it was a good event to definitely watch and a lot to commentate on.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of the country, we had the Stars Championship Series night fight going on over at GoPro Motorplex. We had that one going on the live stream as well. That one featured two of our guys here on the show, Dalton and Emery, were behind the wheel over at that race, which was cool to see them getting after it. And guys, that was the first time we've seen kind of a weekend format in a long time with practice on Thursday, heat racing Friday, main events on Saturday, night racing or not. I mean, obviously gets rolled to the track a little bit later. I think everybody was still probably trying to break the gates down at 10 a.m. when they were having to put out notices to say you're not allowed to get in the track before 10 because the crazy go-kart people we are so used to getting up at 5:30, 6 in the morning, going to the track at 6:30 or 7 and being there till 6. People still wanted to get up early and go, but we were there till, running until 10 p.m. each night. It's something GoPro Motorplex has the facilities for, the permits they were able to work out early in the year because you can only do so many night races. But from a driver's perspective, I want to hear your guys' both thoughts. Dalton and Emery, you both had kind of different experiences through the weekend in terms of on-track performance, but having raced at GoPro the night before, but maybe having not done a weekend like this outside of the AMA Grands. And what do you guys think? Emery, you first.
I thought it was a really great idea to do it at night. I mean, obviously, first off, having it in the summer and you run the finals really well into the night on Saturday for sure. And then even throughout the weekend, Thursday night, Friday night, like it allowed for the important sessions were done in kind of cooler weather. And I think being able to start a little bit later was really nice as well. And obviously also from the driver's perspective, just being able to be out there in the night and kind of the spectacle of it. I mean, I know both Dalton and I have run kart races in the past at GoPro at night a few times at the club level, but to do it on a national scale with 50 or more entries in KA and starting 40 for the final, I mean, it really kind of just added another level of intrigue. And I mean, for me, just looking at the weekend as a whole, like, I mean, obviously the results of it weren't great on track, but just the off track spectacle of it made it a really fun event to go to.
Dalton, we talk about you. Obviously, you're a guy that's, kind of embraced the budget racer persona when it comes to the national scene. This means that you're still having to get that hotel room Saturday night or stay over Saturday night, but it kind of puts it a little bit tougher for guys to want to try and push for practice earlier in the week because we're starting earlier in the week. Stars has that practice ban anyway, so nobody was on track until Thursday. I mean, what was your take on it? It's a little different from a logistical point of view, but you could drive to the track and show up in theory Thursday morning, for making up for the fact that you probably wouldn't want to get out of there Saturday night unless you're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really focus on stuff like that, like practice or anything. Like, it's KA, and I've been at GoPro coaching time, so I'm not really worried about practice. For other guys, definitely, yeah. But no, I just like the fact that it started later in the day. I mean, it was really a calm like setting. No one was rushed or anything, and I enjoyed it. Like, we bought a cart the 3 days before, an old cart, because I'm not gonna race on nice equipment in the race like that. It's a regional. I'm just there for fun, and someone actually helped pay for me to do it. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Of course, it's a really fun race. It's a night race, like Emery said. I've done them before, and they're super fun. But no, from my experience, it wasn't like a great time. But I mean, it was still like a really fun time overall. Like, a night race is something special because you don't really get to do it in nationals because they don't really want you doing it. I don't know why, but stars, yeah, I definitely want to do that again next year. It's a really fun race.
They did a good job, I think, putting on the whole event. They've got a lot of good positivity coming out. We're going to talk about stars a little bit later because I don't know. I haven't talked to stars, and I don't want to throw anything on them at all. But the only series, obviously, in the U.S., not directly tied to any engine manufacturer. There was some big news that came out of the FIA that we're going to touch on in segment 2. We'll have some other guests joining us following the first break, and we'll kind of touch on that new OKN engine announcement that dropped about a week ago. That I think they were supposed to have another announcement coming out today, but I haven't seen it yet. I was checking the FIA site up until we went live. That stuff that's a little more juicy. We have some other stuff we'll talk on too. But that was on the eastern coast, and then of course the central area. Both of those races pushing 200 entries, just a little bit under, I think, at each one, but it was solid. And then on the West Coast, you had 2 races going on in California over the course of the weekend, or at least on the West Coast side. You had Southern California here with the SKUSA California Pro Kart Challenge going on. Blake Nash was able to get a big win in KA Senior. You have Billy Musgrave, obviously, in Pro Shifter, and that was to be expected, obviously, home racetrack, and he's the dominant guy on the West Coast when it comes to the shifter racing as the numbers are light. But the KA stuff was good. Their numbers across the board were decent, but you have to imagine some of the guys split up towards Pat's Acres Racing Complex, which had the California Rock Championship going on as well. That's where the GFC crew was at. That's where Kyle Wick was able to get a big win as up north. And they were kind of split 50-50. So the numbers were a little bit lighter. The California Rock Challenge and Andy Saisman, they moved their events around to try and make sure they could capture as many guys as they could without overloading the schedule. Because down in SoCal, there's just a lot of I think we've touched on it a little bit with Chris Wareheim and some other shows. So he's going to be joining us in a little bit later on too. A lot of racing almost every single week. And it's kind of watered down a lot of their events. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks back. They had Oliver Hodgson, J3 competition factory guy, Jake Drew at a Tri-C Carter's kind of club event, but really a regional. You could call it club because it stays at Cal Speed. This event at Cal Speed, this is, SKUSA's backyard. And it wasn't a bad turnout by any means, but they're having so many races back to back to back. I think that factors into a little bit with some of the numbers being a little bit down. But nonetheless, lots of racing going on around the country. At the bare minimum, they all in the KA 100 classes, they were solid numbers. There's other divisions that were at least half decent. The shifter classes, stars were solid. The shifter turnouts up at the Pacific Northwest with the California Rock Challenge were solid. The mini and the micro classes, they're still looking really good, and that'll be another point we'll touch on with the US Pro Kart Series event coming into town at Road America. You can look at the numbers there. Obviously, if you look at the first 2 events that the PKS Series has had this year, it looks like a downturn. But if you actually go back and compare to where we were in 2021 and in 2020, they're up. The numbers are still up across the board, just about every single class that they've had. I think the only ones that went down a little bit were the X30 classes. They're 28 in X30 senior. They're 22 in X30 junior. The KA classes are about 44, right at the cap for KA junior. They're in the 50s for KA senior, so they're going to have an LCQ, but nobody else will. The mini and micros are in the 20s to 30s. But this track is far out. I don't think there's been burnout because there has been a big gap from the major racing that's been going on. But it doesn't draw as good just because the club area isn't as big. And for the guys that are already traveling with the PKS, you're not getting a big boost of that you would when we go to, let's say, GoPro or to Newcastle, where there's club racers that are serious and will show up when the series come to their track, but don't follow it. You kind of either have this gap. And I was talking with West Steege with the Tag Masters Championship, which is kind of an interstate Wisconsin state type series between Road America and Badger right now. That, they've got either club only guys or they've kind of got national or touring series guys that do Route 66 and US PKS. And there's not necessarily crossover as much back and forth as we see in some of the other regions. So for anyone looking to that race this weekend, I think the numbers are still pretty solid, and we'll do our picks on it obviously later in the show. We got more to talk about from all that, but that's just kind of a quick update for everything from the racing over the last few weeks. There's been a lot. It's kept all of us busy. It obviously wore on me a little bit last week, so I wanted to appreciate everybody taking the time to send well wishes. Just got pretty run down after a lot of weeks of back-to-back racing, but we've got good stuff coming up. We got the USPKS event at Road America. We're going to preview a lot of that, and I want to get everybody's thoughts a little bit when we talk into some of the other juicier topics we'll have in segment 2. So we'll send it to commercial break. After the break, we'll have Chris Wareheim joining us from Offset Sport, and we'll also be taking all your comments and questions as well as we get set for more. So stick with us, guys. Casey Happy Hour will be right back.
Casey Happy Hour is presented by Precision Performance Karting. PPK is the exclusive South Florida distributor for the American-made Coyote Zenith kart racing chassis. PPK is offering trackside support at all the Cup Kart South Division events, the CKNA Majors, including the Spring Nats and the Grand Nats, the Sunshine State Karting Challenge, and a number of club events in the Southeast. New here for 2022 and in partnership with Brandon Jarscrack Racing, PPK is also offering full arrive and drive opportunities in the Junior Senior Briggs 206 classes at the popular Stars Championship Series and the GoPro Motorplex Karting Challenge events. The same professionally prepared kart and motor package that has propelled Brandon to victories at Winter Nationals and the Monticello Divisional in 2022 are available to you. In addition to the Coyote line of racing chassis, Precision Performance Karting is also a distributor for Odenthal Racing Products, Hilliard Clutches, Vega Tires, and Greyhound Racing Seats. Check out Precision Performance Karting on Facebook and Instagram or email them at ppkartingfl@gmail.com.
As the Western importer of the Praga and Formula K chassis brands, Leading Edge Motorsports is a high-performance kart shop and race team with a simple mission: teach others the joy of high-performance driving, supply our customers with the highest quality products and services, and most of all, win races. With our remarkable racing inventory, expert services, and top-ranked national-level team to back it up, we'll help to get your new kart racing package up and running fast. From arrive and drive service to kart preparation and driver coaching to the parts you need to get you back on the racetrack, Leading Edge Motorsports is the industry answer.
All right, everybody, welcome back here to the segment. Of course, welcome back as well to Mr. Chris Wareheim, Mr. Offset Sport, to the show. Chris, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've got, obviously, you got big news here this week. We have comeback number. I don't know what comeback number it is for you now. I know you're getting grief from our good buddy Tony, but you're back this week racing.
Yeah, I mean, I've raced locally and regionally, pretty much every year since I stopped racing in 2012. So, but this is my first national, I think, since Supernats 2013, 2015. So, yeah, I'm pumped. It should be fun.
Well, we brought you onto the show because you're one of the guys that we like to bring on when there's stuff going on across the seas, as a guy who's had experience over there, stays in tune with the scene over there. To get your thoughts on this here, the OKN announcement was something that was big that dropped on the Gap Week that we had. This is a screenshot from the article so everyone can see over here. This was announced in accordance with the OK and the OKJ 2023 national schedule, along with the CIK, KZ, and KZ2 schedules in the Academy of where they're going to go. Talking about how this not new engine package, but somewhat new engine package seems like it's going to be kind of a detuned OK motor. Supposedly it's going to be 1,000 RPMs lower. It's going to be at a 15K rev limiter instead of the 16. The idea is that it's going to be a little more longevity. So to me, just kind of trying to read between the lines, it seems like an open manufacturer, but kind of Vortex Rock type take, where it's taking the OK motors, trying to make them maybe a little more reliable, or like you think you tighten the rules up, like what the spec classes look like, where you take out opening the reed cage, you take out honing the piston, stuff like that. I don't know. But then obviously the biggest thing that's coming out of it, they're obviously combining this with somewhat of a plan to bring it into the States, saying that, and to nations across the country, that there's going to be national qualifying races with this package that you're going to have to run and compete in to get a ticket to the World Cup. I don't know if that's going to be solely invite only from what it seems like, but at minimum, they're going to run it. It sounds like at 155 kg. So they're going to run at 341 pounds is what that roughly translates out to for the minimum weight. So it's higher, I think, than the current OK senior weight, if I'm not mistaken. So it's up there. It's meant more towards the national heavier, more adult drivers. And it's this class that had run at the OK World Championships. I don't know how much you maybe have heard of all the rustling around from your contacts and who you talked to from the announcement, or if you've talked about it much, but I'm curious because I don't know a whole lot. It's out of our wheelhouse from North America. So what's your kind of take of seeing that announcement and hearing everything?
Yeah, they've been working on this for a little bit now. I think a little bit the academy is kind of a little bit of a test, I guess, for it in a way. Not that was the purpose of the academy, but I think it kind of showed what could maybe be done on a international but national level, and having each kind of ASN have their own national championship. There's I believe the French ASN already does an academy type deal with the engine. England for a while tested something where it was one make and kind of, set standard rules, that it was pretty much a stock engine. I think it's a really cool concept. I don't think it's going to affect, and who knows? So this actually could be, maybe we don't know, maybe the academy is going to go away, and this is something that's going to kind of replace the academy in a way. You never know. I haven't heard any rumbling of that, especially with OTK's recent announcement of a big investment. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the academy changes something else. But no, I think it's really interesting. And, honestly, the OKJ engine is actually cheaper to run than an X30 already, and more reliable, even fully tuned up on an international level. So, there is a great platform there to kind of bring something closer to maybe X30 racing and Rotax racing. Maybe not as spec as that, but there's a cool opportunity, I think, that this could bring.
And then, from your opinion, as much as you want to go in, I think just as cool as it would be, right? Where does for me, I don't know how it kind of breaks into, at least over here on the States. I don't have nearly as much of a touch on where the national side looks. And that's obviously in every other country where there is a fully hands-on dominant ASN, that licenses the country. We don't have that. All of our major series are put on with a heavy link or ownership to an engine manufacturer. SKUSA with IAME West, US PKS is a tight tie with IAME East. The only series kind of in the middle, even though they've got a nice relationship with MG and IAME East, would be the Stars series. And while from every talk with them, even when Joe came on our show, right, he says we don't want to be a national, we don't want to be a regional. We kind of like having more privateers and more of the grassroots racers, even if we are a big event. So they're somewhere in the middle. But I don't know how it would break in, even if it does end up being a better package without some major funding or incentive program from the FIA, right? Because we've seen other series like this. I was telling some of the guys before the show, this is before even my time getting into the sport, but it was during your era, right? The WSK North America series that came and tried and put on events over here in the late 2000s with 40, 50 entry races at top tier tracks and top tier classes. But, I don't know how it breaks in.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to break in. I think there's a big opportunity for it, depending on what they decide on the rules. If they decide to allow at least the engine builders to do a little bit to the engines, but not as much as they do on the international level, because honestly, on the international level at CIK and WSK events, a lot of the engines, with the way the homologation works and what the rules are, it looks like a, stock engine from the outside, but internally, there's parts that are made specifically for each team. They do, Ward may make a different rod or different part of the engine, different reed block, completely different than one and the factory OTK guy, factory Vortex guys. So those three Vortex engines are going to have completely different reed intakes, maybe piston shapes. So we definitely, I think the opportunity is to kind of limit that, but allow at least a little bit of maybe some homework. Some machine work on the ports, maybe, choose a little bit different reeds. If you want to have some different reeds, maybe a different reed block, but it has to stay within a certain spec. Don't open it up to different pipes and different pistons and rods, try to keep that more spec, but at least allow the engine builders to work a little bit. I don't think SKUSA would do anything with it. I don't think US PKS would do anything with it. I don't think Stars would do anything with it. I think honestly, maybe the only people that have the knowledge, have the experience, and maybe would be willing to do it is actually the J3 guys with the Rotax program. You could almost do something cool where you had, a couple CIK classes, the two national classes, then Rotax. So they could almost, they have room already with Rotax to do these events with more entries. It might be a way to kind of elevate their series. So who knows? I mean, you never know. But I think that is, if we ever were to see it, I think that's probably the people that would be the most interesting to do it.
Well, interesting. I think it's fun for us to follow on the side and obviously for us to talk about. Another thing that I wanted to talk about this show before we get into previewing a lot more with the race at Road America, we said in the caption here, everybody, that we weren't going to talk yet about the Cole Kleck, Nate Cicero incident. Obviously, SKUSA put out a statement while we were off the air as well, saying that they've already started kind of making some moves, but basically they're temporary bans until they complete their investigation of what they want to do those bans hold up, all that. So we're going to stay away from that. But the big outcome of the incident, the reason that wreck was so bad was there was a tire wall 5 feet off the racetrack down the front straightaway. Now, I don't know. There's only been so many races in the modern era, you could say in the last 10, 15 years, that Utah Motorsports Campus has held that are that level, that could even have a wreck down the front stretch. This is the first wreck I've seen to that degree. But we go to Road America, and I think it's a good way to segue into track barrier systems and corner cutting. And it's a good way also to segue off of GoPro Motorplex with the Stars Championship Series. What was interesting over at the Stars Championship Series at GoPro, actually here with this picture, if it will load here from Aaron. So this picture is from the outside of turn number 6 at GoPro Motorplex. Typically, and they've tried a bunch of different ways, because in the past they've had rental carts run off the racetrack, eat up the grass over and over again. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars on sod, probably. I don't know what the number is, but I can imagine between the manpower and shutting the track down and having to hope no one runs over the new sod as you plant it to replant the grass and the rental carts going off, they said it'd be cheaper to just go ahead and pave concrete patches. And it's paved a lot of runoff around the racetrack that purists to the sport, that like racetracks like Newcastle, like Road America and stuff like that, I've been annoyed with, because now that runoff makes the corner easier. You go over the curb and onto the concrete. So they've done a bunch of different ways to try and limit track limits. They put plastic barriers at the exit of the track. They put sleeping policemen, which are those kind of plastic or even built-in concrete bumps that Homestead did for a little while. And then at the Stars event in turn 6, they completely took the barriers out. They only had the barriers in the final corner. And I think that was because the brick wall is pretty close on that front straightaway, so they don't want guys going way wide there. But they went wide here. We go to Road America. It's been a talking point every year that we go here, that the turn 1-2 chicane specifically has a ton of grass runoff in between all of it. And almost every year that we go to this racetrack, there's guys cutting it, trying to get away with something. And for a while, the penalty, the worst you'd get was a 4-position penalty for blatant cutting. So like Jake French in 2020, I think, in KA, if not 2021, realized he was starting 20th. And I hate to call it Jake, but he's a friend of the show and he knows what he did. Went from 20th up to 4th or 5th, because he didn't have the pace to run up front. He knew he was only going to get a 4-position penalty, so even though he faded back to 8th or 9th by the end of the main, he still ended up better than where he would have been trying to start where he was and balance off the pace. So the question here to all of our panel, and we'll start at the top here with Aaron, as a guy who's a Wisconsinite, basically, is going over, at least at this racetrack, in turns 1 and 2. Aaron, I don't know why the photo is just not working with me today. I'm trying to pull it up, but I couldn't see it. But anyway, turns 1 and 2, you know what we're talking about. Big grass area. We've had pylons there in the years past. The pylons get run over, broken, and then they're charred. You go over that, and it pops a tire. There's been plastic barriers thought about. There's cones. There's nothing. There's tires. What would you do if you are the czar for the weekend for the series? What would you prefer?
I've had this discussion before, and so I remember the first year that we went back after the repave. This was 2018, I think, 17 or 18, and I was still running. I was good friends with Josh Hodes at the time, still am, but I was running with him, and we just cut the turn 2 chicane. We'd get our right 2 tires over the curb, and we pretty much cut the whole thing, drag a bunch of dirt onto the track. They yelled at me for that, and I'd cut the track in like 3 other spots because you could. And so they put this giant plastic barrier right at the apex, just inside of the curb, and then somebody smashed that and bent their car, so they got rid of that. And they tried a lot of stuff for it, like you said. My realistic, not even realistic necessarily, my idea was just if you cut the corner there, that lap doesn't count. You didn't complete a full lap of the track. You just essentially skipped 3 turns out there. So you have a right, you have a left, and then you have a right-hand curve to kind of line back up where the straightaway was going. So you didn't complete that part of the track. You didn't complete a full lap, but your entire lap is DQ'd. You're just a lap behind now. And you know, that's kind of, you have to go that severe with punishment just to keep people from trying to do it. And you can go through there and say, like, all right, there was a wreck, you got pushed off, whatever, and you can have some margin for that. But I think you got to be pretty strict with penalties and be pretty heavy-handed with the penalties that you're going to give out for cutting the track in those instances. Because when I was running last year, I lost 15, 20, maybe even 25 spots on the start because I drove through the chicane like normal, and I'd look over and see a bunch of people cutting the corner.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to go like innocent proven guilty. Emery, you've raced at Road America, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I have.
So talk to me about it. What's your thoughts on that chicane? What do you think they should do?
I think last year we saw was a lot worse than in 2020. Like, people really started realizing that you could take advantage of just clear on cutting the chicane on the start, and the worst you're going to get is a 4-spot penalty. And I mean, in an ideal world, you put barriers there. You just flat out make it to where if someone cuts that, they're going in the barrier, no hesitation. But there's money involved. People are going to be mad about bending up their cars. So I'm not a huge fan of the barrier approach, but I also think putting cones there is kind of a useful approach as well. So I think kind of the way to do it would be, like Aaron said, you have to make it to where the consequences of cutting it are significantly worse than what the rewards of it are. And I mean, I think the not counting the lap is a good solution to it. I would also say potentially adding on time penalties of 15, 20 seconds. Because I remember back at GoPro in 2015, there was a situation where Brandon Lemke missed a corner in turn 8 in the rain, cut into turn 11 there. And if you remember, between the hairpin and turn 11, there's an area where you can do that. And WK at the time, I think, gave him a 40-second penalty, which obviously, like, you don't gain 40 seconds. But if you put that amount of time on it to where they're losing way more than they would gain by cutting it, I think that at that point, you start to see the benefits. So if I was running this weekend, I would say a blanket 15-second penalty to anyone that's caught blatantly cutting turn 1. And if it's just a minor cut, like the 4 wheels off, kind of cutting the inside curving, if they don't have the barrier there, then I think that's more of a 2-position penalty type of deal. But certainly the blatant cutting on the start, you have to penalize pretty severely.
Chris, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's gotten, like Aaron said, it's gotten worse over the last couple of years. I mean, I haven't raced there since 2008, but I've obviously been there pretty much to every race that's been there since. Yeah, there is no perfect fix. I mean, the perfect fix would be that area is paved and you actually had like a barrier system that they had to go through, kind of similar to Formula One, where it was kind of pushed up the hill a little bit and they had time to slow down on the start. But Emery's right. I mean, you have to do something that's pretty aggressive time-wise. And, you know, if you have a GoPro on, you can appeal it. But, you know, you maybe at the start put 2 or 3 extra people up there just to watch, to see who's cutting it egregiously or, you know, wasn't really forced out there. I know some guys are pretty good at making it look like at GoPro in turn 1, you know, you can make it look like you were forced out. I'm probably guilty of that 1 or 2 times, but it is what it is. It's part of the sport anyways. But yeah, a bigger penalty than 4 positions or even 5 seconds needs to be in place.
Yeah, I think it's got to be hefty there. Caleb, obviously you're going to be on the mic here with me this weekend. I don't think you've been up to Road America before, have you?
No, I've been to Schwano and now Badger, but you know, there is an old school fix. It wouldn't be the safest in the world, but you can always do the old school sand or stones into turn 1. Maybe leave 2 feet of grass all the way through, and then they're not going to want to go through there. Granted, there's the risk of them flipping because it's a long straight, but if you want to go
street racer, and you coming out,
maybe we'll put water barriers up and curbs. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I think it needs to be a stricter time penalty. I mean, you can add. I mean, like you said, the 4 spots don't really do much because guys will cut through it and say, what the heck, there's 4 spots, and I'm just going to be, if I win, I'm starting 4th or 5th. I don't know. You can go extreme and say half a lap. So if they're doing 50, I don't know what times to do there. So they're doing 50-second laps. Well, congratulations, you got 25 seconds added to it because you had to pass 3 or 4 people. But I think sand is the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, that I wasn't thinking. I'm kind of I don't know. The plastic barriers get knocked over. The cones get knocked over. The pylons have been kind of knocked, so there's not a good way there. If they're going to go hard with the penalty, then it's got to probably start with the first round of pre-finals. Like the first few classes need to have a lot of guys probably get crucified, because anytime a series like threatens big penalties or comes in and we get the lashing at the drivers meeting of, oh, you guys better behave, you guys better, race each other clean, don't cut the racetrack. And then the first session, everyone's going to kind of test those race directors and see if the officials are actually going to come down hard with what we have. So a time penalty is obviously great in theory, but there's going to be probably in the first few races, if that's the way things were done and nothing else changes and it's just a hefty time penalty that's threatened at this level, I don't think that's going to scare enough guys to keep people from doing it. I think the officials would get tested. I think a couple people will probably slip through. But if enough guys get crucified in the pre-finals Saturday, I think it could be fine to get through the weekend. I think another barrier system that's always – I forget about it until we go to tracks that have it. We haven't gone to a lot that have it, is those like foam pillows that MRP and Pittsburgh and Badger have, because they catch the cart, and the cart does get hit, but it doesn't like ever – I've never seen them injure the driver at all. And they don't really seem to move a whole lot. Like the closest was like Caden Wharf blew one up in Pittsburgh with a stuck throttle at the end of the front straightaway. Granted, that wouldn't work well there, but I think if you got a stuck throttle, you could turn right and a little bit kind of miss them. But that to me is my take on it. If the officials were going to do it, and you could, like you said, Chris, I mean, you could, or Aaron, I forget which one of you guys said it, put a couple more guys there for the start. For at times either 2021 or 2020, we would have a guy that was the main guy for that section. He just had his phone out, and just the official would literally film the first two corners of the start of each race. And then we kind of could go back through that and be like, all right, this guy cut, this guy cut, this guy cut. But like you said, like there's guys they'll go right, kind of make it look like you're next to the guy. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to get away from him and
lock up the brakes a little too much.
Lock the brakes up a little bit. And you just still net a few more spots in it. And if we're going to talk to guys that can get away with it at GoPro, there's a GoPro hero in our chat we haven't talked to. So Dalton, let's put you on the spot. Have you ever done that when you've been starting at the back? I got to cut well, I guess now they don't even let you do it. The club race, they just take the whole barrier out for the starts. But before that.
Absolutely. 100%. I don't, actually they've started to put a barrier from the chicane all the way to the grass. That works the worst. It's like awful. Because even if, because it does happen at GoPro all the time, you get shoved wide because there's always wrecks in the middle of the turn one at GoPro. But I'd say for Wisconsin, it's a bit different. Honestly, if it were me, I personally hate time penalties, especially from stars. No, I just put a barrier all the way across and leave a little bit of room closer to this chain so it wouldn't be like right on the curb. But I just put a barrier all the way across because I hate like deciding whether they cut it or they were forced off. It's just like normally you don't it's hard to get forced off that far because I know like people like Annunziata, he just full throttle.
I have an idea.
Yeah, what do you got? I
got an idea. Okay. So obviously the biggest problem, we talk more about the bad apples, but in reality, like it is more legit people going off, especially in these bigger fields because of an incident, especially in a corner like that. But that corner actually has the shape where you could actually put a barrier system on what would be your left side going up the hill, right? And kind of bring it back in. So if someone did try to cut the track, they would have to go through what would be essentially a cart width wide, and they couldn't enter right onto the track. They would have to somehow keep it going in the grass up the hill and join further up the hill. Then there's almost no benefit, even if you try to launch it through. And then it's really obvious if you're trying to just cut but if you go right, left over the curb, and from the end of that curb, go a barrier up the edge of the track, essentially on the grass. Now you can't cut the track, but at least, you're not hitting the barrier. There is room if there's an incident for you to keep your race alive. That might be interesting that you could work within.
Wouldn't you want it in the grass? Like the whole barrier system, you have to get through it in the grass.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah. I mean, if you even if you got in a wreck unless it's raining there, you'll still be able to keep going through there, but if you go, say, trying to think, maybe 50, 60 feet up the track, at least your rate, if something happened, your race is still going on, but you do penalize the guys that are trying to cut the track. You'd have to, I haven't been there since last year. You'd have to walk and see what would make sense, but I think that might actually work.
If you
Not a bad idea.
I do like that. I think because
Aaron, before we get into that, could you add that picture really quickly back there? Because I think we could show that a little bit with the overhead shot that you had. I was trying to throw it up here. See if you can pull that up.
Yeah, let me try to re-upload it real quick.
See if you can throw that up for us. But go ahead.
All right, I just tried it. So there we go. Yeah, I think you'd have to leave like 3 or 4 feet of space from the apex of the curb to the inside of the corner for turn 2, that left-hand part of that chicane at the top of the photo. And then you run a wall kind of along it and you drop them off, like a third to a half of the way up that straightaway. Yeah, and you can bring them back up there. And that actually, I think that could work because the grass does slow you down a noticeable amount. If you make them stay in that grass longer, I think you could make that work. That is a good idea.
There's enough space there. I think you could do it too. I mean, like, even if you brought them slightly up to the edge of the surface a little bit on the outside of the racetrack, right? Because the way the line goes, you stay on the right-hand side up until, like Chris said, when the corner starts to open up. I mean, even if you brought that onto the edge of the racetrack a little bit, but you kept them in the marbles on the dirt, I don't know. It'd be something that'd be funny to test, like Thursday night, and send a guy through that with a go-kart you didn't care about too much and say, all right, like, you're going to be the dummy to try and go through the grass. We're going to see what the delta difference is from that.
I'll go yard sell my go-kart through the grass for that. Because, you really don't come to the outside of the track, like that left side, until you actually start to turn in for the right-hander. You pretty much straight shot it to the turn entry. So you've got a lot of space on the left that rarely gets used, and you're not really running a risk of anybody going off that way because you're coming from a left-hand turn.
Right.
Well, Chris also said that he wanted to make it like the F1 barrier system where it's only like a cart width wide. So if you did
that'd be like if it was paved. But, I mean, it would need to be like not like the chicane. Yeah.
I forgot how early on the outside it starts turning back to the right. So naturally it would already kind of be that width, I think, if you had a barrier there. So you wouldn't have to go up as far up the hill as I originally thought now seeing the photo.
But if you did have if you did have someone who gets into an actual accident, because that's what we're talking about. It's not we want to talk about preventing people from just cutting. But what everyone always says is, we go off because there's an accident. There, it was an actual accident, and it was a cart width wide. Then you just have like a funnel of carts just going into that. And
no, our point is it'd be far enough up the hill that even if there was an accident, you'd be able to at least kind of sort your way through.
Yeah, we're not talking like right when the grass
it wouldn't
starts.
be so close to the first turn.
It would be
a lot
like
closer
from what I'm imagining. Yeah, and like
pretty
if you're
much
in an actual wreck, you lose a lot of speed anyways. If you're avoiding wreck, whatever, you're not going up full speed, full throttle, didn't even brake for the corner. You could almost even put like a little gate on the right side for if you're going slow enough, you could easily make that. But if you're trying to go through it flat out, then you just smash the barrier and you'd clearly not be able to make it through there.
I feel like the only thing with that is, like, ideally you would want to have that paved where you have that barrier section, because otherwise going through the grass with a small amount of width that's available, even if it is up the hill a little bit, like, that's going to be a challenge. I know, like, you're going slow speed, but especially I think certainly the entrance point you would want to have at least a little bit back onto the pavement. So I mean, I think it's a good idea. I just think that the easiest way to do it going forward would be to have that section, have it paved. But I think we're still a little bit away from that.
Yeah,
I don't think they put the money into that track for that.
What it doesn't show on the picture too is that grass. That's like a 15, 20-foot bank almost when it opens up the most by the corner. So it'd be, I don't know if there's like a flat enough cart width section in the grass. You could keep them in the grass for a little bit from that on before they'd start going up on the embankment and kind of getting beached. But either way, I mean, what it would mean is, like, if you think you're going to have to miss it, you are gunning it and going all the way through it. But yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know. I think that concept's new because there's some technology out there too that nowadays you can, like, there's some camera systems that can draw like the imaginary dotted line and catch anyone that goes over it. There's obviously timing loops that they put like a timing loop in where if you didn't make a certain checkpoint, you'd have to prove it. But still, anyway, what it boils down to, right, is guys would show their onboard to try and protest it, and they would try to say that they got forced off. And all you got to do is just kind of hip check a guy in the right way so there's contact to your go-kart and get around it. So if there's something that's more like cut and dry that you take the judgment out, I think then you don't worry about the protest getting overturned on something that shouldn't be. But the moral, I think, going into this weekend, whether or not it would be feasible to do something kind of really off the wall like that barrier would be to at least make sure that it's a guilty before proven innocent mentality with it. I think it's going to have to be, and then for sure some heavy penalties on it. So we'll see what they do. We'll see what the weekend looks like. Like we've talked about, it's definitely, this is our third year coming back. It's progressed a little bit like any track does, and the racing there progresses as well. With that in mind, we're going to talk about the racing when we come back from the break. As many of you guys saw on our social medias, the KC Fantasy League round number 5 is up this week. Got a couple new t-shirts that you guys can win if you're able to win the weekly standings. We also got the season standings up to date for the first 4 rounds. If you want to see how you fared so far this year, I'm still working on putting together some cool prizes for the end of the season overall champions. We'll have some double points weekends coming up with the Shifter and X30 fields beginning at Summer Nats. But in the meantime, we're going to give you guys some of our picks here for the top 5 for X30 Pro, and then, of course, come back to all your comments, concerns, and questions at the end of the show. So after this commercial break, guys, we'll break through all that and give everyone the chance to pick their top 5 here for this weekend, and the rookie pick, of course, out of one of the 5. See you right after the break.
At New Gen Motorsport, we're committed to using our 10-plus years of experience and knowledge to help grow the sport of karting from the bottom up. Our goal is to make karting more accessible to the average person, lessening the financial burden of getting started, and making the learning curve as small as possible. Our passion is training and developing drivers, mechanics, and engineers to not only be the best they can be in karting, but also for careers in the much larger world of professional motorsports. A strong foundation makes building bigger easier. Let us be that foundation for your karting and motorsports career. Be part of the new generation of motorsport. Contact us today to schedule your test day, arrive and drive race event, or to inquire about how we can help get you started in your own new gen racing kart.
Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex Rock engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com. Looking to join one of the fastest growing kart clubs in the United States? Check out the Mississippi Karters Association. Located at the legendary Spring Ridge Raceway in Jackson, Mississippi, the MKA and Drive Your Line Kart Shop have already kicked off their 2022 year with a massive increase in drivers and some awesome racing. Even if you don't have a kart yet, you can get involved by checking out the Drive Your Line Kart Shop, which is an official dealer of Comp Kart, Tillotson, and Margay chassis, as well as Briggs & Stratton, Tillotson, Yamaha, and IAMI engines. If you're a new, returning, or current racer, the MKA and Drive Your Line Kart Shop can help you get in the seat and on the track in the central Mississippi region. Check them out online on Facebook or at misskarting.com and driveyourline.com. From 4-stroke to 100cc to 125cc and beyond, Technokart USA has a winning option for you. Based out of Des Plaines, Illinois, Technokart USA offers both chassis designed to win in all divisions of North American karting and a top-level race support program at the US Pro Kart Series, Route 66 Sprint Series, select Cup Karts North America races, and both the Rock Vegas and SKUSA Super Nationals. Podiums, wins, and championships are waiting for you whenever you're ready to get on a Technokart. For more information, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TechnokartUSA.
Welcome, everybody, back to the show here. Thanks for sticking with us so far. My name's Andrew Clements. You are watching KC Happy Hour episode number 49 with our full-time crew, along with special guest and friend of the show, Chris Wareheim. It's time to go ahead and get onto the driver's side of the previews here for the weekend. We'll go bottom to top here, give Chris first honors for the top 5 in the X30 Pro class that you can pick. There's, of course, what might as well be the free space on the bingo board by picking Ryan Norberg. But if you take him out or you put him on your roster, either way, there's nobody with more points this year and more wins than him. So, Chris, let's send it over to you. You get one rookie pick. You get 4 other ones. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, how do you not pick Ryan? He's on a roll. He's going to stay on a roll this year, I think. I think there's some guys that can beat him. I think Weinberg is a good candidate to beat him this year a couple times. I think that CRG will probably look pretty good on the tricky track surface, and Speed usually is pretty good at Road America with his drivers. I think my boy Paulie is going to be quick. I always have to say Dante, and we're working on some things for this weekend that I think will be a little bit different. So I think you'll see Dante further up the front than you've seen him this year. Where am I at? Is that my 4?
That's 4 here. Let me go ahead. I was working on it, and then I messed it up a little
man.
bit. So we got Norberg, we got Weinberg, we got Paulie, we got Dante. I mean, you could put Weinberg as your rookie pick.
No, the problem is, I got lots of rookie offset drivers that every time I don't pick them, I get hit. But they're always in my heart. So, honestly, man, it's hard. I think Jeremy looks really good in the new RPM colors. He looked, at least in the KA and even in X30 at Utah, he looks super strong. I'm gonna go. I think, man, Paul was looking good too. I'm gonna go with Jeremy. I think Jeremy's gonna have a good showing this weekend.
All right, I like it. All right, Aaron, let's send it over to you here. Picks for the weekend. Do you have your top 5? You got your notes?
Yeah, I got my notes pulled up right here. So I got my rookie pick is Cameron Weinberg. I think he's been phenomenal this year. Obviously, was running really well in Utah on Sunday, and when I was running on DR, which is a CRG brand, I ended up finishing at the time my career best finish in a series out there. So Weinberg's gonna be my first pick out there. And then Colin Warren, KR driver, he was super fast, super impressive at GoPro. I mean, I think it's crazy not to pick him for this upcoming season, or for this upcoming race. Sorry, Paulie's been faster in the past, so the last couple of years he's been pretty quick. So I have him on there. Jeremy Fletcher should be really quick as well, and Dante Yu is my last pick. I think they both are going to have really good weekends. Like you said, like Chris was saying, Jeremy was really strong in the RPM karts at Utah the past race, and Dante is usually pretty quick. He's always a pretty safe option. I'm interested to see how Martin Kremers does, because I don't think he's been to Road America, and if anybody hasn't been there, it's kind of a tricky surface right now after the repave. So I'm interested to kind of see how he ends up handling the surface overall and adapting to that stuff, because it's certainly not the European style grip and feel that he's going to be used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's dead opposite. And the PSL guys got rolling at Utah, but I don't know where everyone else would credit. It seemed like they got going in the final, and I would credit a lot of that to those older veteran guys in Kremers and Hiltbrand saving tires at a track that had a lot of tire drag compared to a lot of rookies and young kids around them. Caleb, what you got for your 5 this week?
Okay, so I got Ryan. I got Massimino are going to be my 2 safe options. And I think it's going to be kind of rookie filled in the top 5. I'm going to take my 1 rookie pick is Jeremy Fletcher. I've always been impressed with him this year, starting in the Winter Tour, and he was very impressive out in Utah. So I'll take Fletcher as my rookie. I think Bocuse is also going to be quick. He was quick out in Utah, so I think he's going to learn from his mentor of Norberg and take from that. And then, how many is that? Is that 3 or 4 for me?
That's 4. You got 4 right now. I wish you got one more.
I'll take Weinberg, because I think the CRG chassis is starting to come into develop for him. Just like what Aaron was saying, I ran on GP, which is also another derivative of the CRG brand. So I think if it's a little bit colder or maybe the track surface is a little bit tricky, I think it's going to come into effect for him.
All right, Dalton, you raced against pretty much all these guys at some point this year, some of them a lot of times this year. Who you got as your 5 for the weekend?
Norberg's definitely winning one of the days. I'm going to go Weinberg 2nd, Fletcher 3rd, Ataconis 4th, and Jack Jeffers 5th.
I like that. I think everyone, forgets. I mean, Jeffers was really, really good at GoPro when he debuted, and he's had flashes of speed, but he hasn't raced as much as some of the other guys. So he could be a sleeper pick for this weekend. And Ataconis too. I mean, he was close at GoPro, and he wasn't at Utah, so it wasn't that he wasn't there and not, didn't show up on track. He just wasn't at the event. But the last event he was at, top 5 contender. I think he got to 5th or 6th on Sunday. He almost got to the podium for a little bit in the main, one of the 2 mains, if I remember right. So he could be really, really good. Emery, let's go to you, man. Who you got for your 5?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to shock absolutely everyone and have Ryan Norberg, probably about as much of the guarantees you're going to get. I think, like everyone else has said, Paulie's done well in the past at Road America. So I think he's another good bet. I mean, he's been on the podium multiple times the last 2 years.
I forgot about Paul.
Yeah, Paulie's.
Oh,
Yeah,
did him dirty.
Paulie's a pretty safe bet up there, I would say. And then kind of the last three are ones that I kind of had to debate a little bit. I think one of the guys I look at is Hayden Jones. I think if you look at how he's done at Road America the last 2 years, last year in X30 didn't have a ton of success, but in KE was up there. And in 2020, he actually ran at the time, it was really good for him in X30. So it's a track that he's got more experience on, also running the route, I believe, a couple of years up there. So he's got some experience there compared to the rest of the field. So I think he's one. Obviously, under RPG, they've been absolutely brilliant the last year or so, in addition to what they've always been doing. So that's one. And then the last two guys for me, kind of up in the air. I had Diego Cantecha, who, if you remember back to 2020, had a really good run there. Some people said this may be a fluke. I think there's something to take from the fact that he was up front all week and ended up winning the final on Saturday. So he's my fourth pick, kind of a little bit of an off-the-wall one. And then for the rookie pick, I mean, I've got to go with Justin Anaconis. I mean, Cameron Weinberg's been up front all year, so no fault whatsoever if someone goes with Weinberg. But I think that Anaconis has just been really strong. We saw he was able to do it GoPro. He did well in junior up at Road America last year. And I just think that this is potentially a breakout weekend for him.
Yeah, I think for sure Anaconis gets my rookie pick just kind of out of favor. I Redhead's got to stick together on that one, so I'm going to give him some love just for that. But I think, to me, just over the course of the USPKS GoPro weekend, it seemed like there was a big boost in his confidence by the time he got to Sunday by finally having one race of running up front with the top five. So I think he is going to be – I'd like to hope that he's a factor. You know, you think sometimes you think in terms of teams of guys that are – maybe the only guy or the fastest guy with a specific manufacturer or team, right? Justin Anaconis has been waving the Mike Doty racing flag all year since Brandon Jarskrak's old, washed up, and retired. So Justin's done a great job putting those guys up front and getting better each weekend. So I think he could get going really, really good. We got to give a lot of love to a guy that podiumed at GoPro and wasn't at Utah as well, and Colin Warren, who was wrenching on his own equipment. He's back this weekend in the KR. Now, he hasn't been if we go back to Road America last year, he was kind of 10th to 12th on the Chad Dawkin Racing OTK. But he is, you know, what I would say is the main Kart Republic in the field, because Cantecha and Orsil, and they kind of do their own thing. They'll get some help, right? But you think of, I would say Colin Warren's going to get a lot of focus. I'd like to hope that he does on the senior side. And when he did, in the only other weekend he's done with them this year, he finished third on one of the days and was in contention, I think, on the other day as well, had he not had an issue at one point in the day. I can't remember if it was a motor let go or he got into a wreck on one of the early starts, but he was fast and he's really, really quick. I don't know if he's going to get a mechanic this week, and I think if he gets a mechanic, everyone's going to have to watch out, because if he's on a good package and a good team and good support on how to tune that go-kart, and he doesn't have to worry about making sure the wheels fall off, I think he's going to be a big factor. So I'm going to pick him. I think he'll be solid. I don't think he'll get a lot of picks this week, so I don't think a lot of people know about him yet on the national scene, but he's a guy who's obviously won about everything there is to win when it comes to four-stroke racing, and he probably would be a guy that we talk about a whole lot more if the budget was there to put him in more two-stroke races. I agree with Chris. I think, and whoever else said it on Fletcher, I think Jeremy Fletcher looked super strong with the new package over in Utah. So with RPM, I mean, I think he'll be good. I think I'm going to go double RPM. I'll go him and Paulie. I think they'll both be up there. And just for the sake to not pick Norberg, because I can't pick him after calling him out and saying that I'm going to personally tackle him to the ground and make sure that he doesn't get to start the race. So assuming that we can get a mic onto a go-kart, or at least into my helmet, and I can go steal a go-kart from the pit area, maybe after Chris wins an X30 Masters, you know, I can go and junk the go-kart Sunday for him and take out Ryan and do the field of service to give us some entertainment. But in all that said, not picking Ryan for my last pick. It's a tough one. I think I like Karen Weinberg and I like Jack Jeffers. I'd give it the nod to Weinberg there, but I'd say honorable mentions for sure for Jeffers for the speed he's shown this year. And I think Hayden Jones, too, could be a big sleeper. Like you said, Emery, he was battling with Ryan at Road America 2020 for sixth. So, with how he's been through the year, I think he could be good, and it's a track, like you said, he's got experience at. But for me, I think Colin Warren's going to get slept on a lot this week. I think he's going to do phenomenal. I think Paulie's going to kind of get it going there at a track he's been good at. Fletcher's going to be fast. You have to assume Weinberg will be fast, and of course Norberg will be there. And I'm curious. I'm very curious how Kremers does on the Burrell with PSL. Like Aaron mentioned, the track here is super hard to tune for, because the surface itself, there's rubber that will get laid down, and we'll get to see that. There will be dark parts of the racetrack. But when we went there in 2020, and it had not got obviously a lot of action due to COVID, but hadn't got a lot of big race action in a long time. And I think guys were on darn near range setups to try and put grip in the go-karts for most of the weekend until we finally got half decent by Sunday. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the track conditions will be like. I mean, Chris, you tuned there for guys last year that ran pretty good. Were you guys still fighting just to put grip in the car through the weekend, or did it get better?
No, not really. I think, I think a lot of people overthink it. It's really all about just getting the tires to work properly. That's all it is. We actually don't really do too much crazy different with the chassis. It's just making the tires switch on properly, and that's kind of it.
I'm actually going to change my just slightly.
Oh, no, you can't do that, Dalton. You submitted your picks. You're done.
No, I have
what are you going to do?
I don't mess with the kart chaser thing, writing down who's going to win or not. I don't do that. No, I didn't write it down. I did not submit it at all. I'm saying that RPG is going to have a couple more qualifying in the top 3. Probably Bocuse is going to qualify in the top 3 with Norberg, but he is known for overheating tires midway through the race. So he's going to fall back to 6th, I think. And I'm putting Pauly P3, Weinberg P2, and Fletcher P4, and then Adiconis P5. Jeffers is going to be close, but I don't know. I definitely think that Weinberg and Fletcher are the best 2 rookies. They're the smartest guys that I've raced against, and definitely show more potential than what their experience has.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Jeffers is on a C or G or not.
Yeah, that'll be
the team's
right?
slowly starting to switch over. I know some of the guys for this weekend aren't on C or G. I know they have some new drivers, but it'll be interesting to see if Jeffers switches over or not.
I think that's their goal towards the end of the year, is to keep over and over just switching guys forward. So, I mean, if not in Road America, you'd have to assume in the next month or so that he'll be switched at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he's been kind of the last guy to jump over to it, right? Everyone they put on it, G3R Gyros and Jr. went really quick on it over in Utah when he switched, and he was good, better than I think where he'd been running for some of the year, which is tough when you look at kids because they're, they'll have a random weekend where all of a sudden they figure it out, and the learning curve just spikes, for a little bit. But I mean, he ran better than where he'd been for some of the year too. So yeah, Jeffers be the last one. I'm curious on that. There's news going around for Diego Ramos. He's on the entry list for X30 Pro. He is just announced today he's going to be leaving the REM Cosmic Squad. So he'll be on something new this week. That announcement will come out Thursday, but for everyone who will get to the track Wednesday is going to know probably when they go and see her on the 10th, so who he's with. But he's there. He's in X30 Pro, and he'll be on a different piece. He will not be on an OTK machine beginning this weekend. So for the first time in I don't know how long. I think he's been on OTK about every time I've seen him, besides some regionals on Comp Kart for U-Race in Florida.
I'm guessing he's on Paralyn. I mean, you think about it. What kart?
They don't have anyone.
Is the promising, prominent kart manufacturer that had great results earlier in the year and now doesn't have a driver driving their kart?
DeMello.
Yeah. Well, no, he's not on the list. I don't think they've got anyone for this week right now because Atulio's not running for the during the USF junior season, I think. And DeMello's not on the list yet, but he could be a late entry because that guy loves to wait till the last second to put his entry in and miss the fantasy league. I remember Cameron was upset. I think for USPKS GoPro, he didn't get picked at all, but he waited till Friday to walk up at the racetrack. We got to put this stuff out early. These guys got to get themselves out a little bit sooner. We had a few other comments come in about the Road America stuff that was cool that I thought was funny. Obviously, Bill Vincent, he's thinking just concrete scares everyone. Let's put a concrete wall up there. That sounds like a Caleb Smock fan if I've ever heard one. Mr. Street Racer.
Let's run the off-road section at the top of the hill.
Yeah,
some rallycross karting in here.
That would be.
Hey, I'm just saying, they're gonna do it once and then they'll never do it again.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely won't do it again. You might not physically be able to do anything again, but you won't be going off the racetrack. And off-road section looks like it'd be so cool if it was part of the racetrack. I mean, the elevation there is just insane on that because that hill drops off.
Yeah, it does. It's got a ton of elevation on it. I've been going to Road America since I was like 10. I always wanted to try something out there. If they could make it flat, I'd be interested in trying to run like a rally cross style race in go-karts where it's just flat dirt. You don't have jumps because there's no suspension, obviously, but try to do something like that. You go top of the hill, run the dirt section, come back on. That turn 4, what's currently turn 4, would be so difficult because you got dirt on your tires. That's already a downhill left-hand off-camber turn. I think that'd make it really interesting.
I'd love to see them do that at Route one year.
Yeah, let's go to there.
Yeah, 100%. A good couple other ones that just came in here onto the ticker. Doug Corcoran was talking about the crash pillows. We mentioned that. I think crash pillows would be interesting. I think it could work, but I mean, they if you hit them hard enough, they will blow and the foam goes everywhere. And that's, I don't know, might not be. I mean, you hit a piece of foam. That's part of it. We're definitely gonna want to try and get a good camera on that. So we'll see. Aaron, you got some cool news. Obviously, MPG Motorsports, you're sporting their T-shirt. You're working for them this week. They're sponsoring the event. They got some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, so there's this bar out in Elkhart Lake. It's called Siebkins. It's Billy Vincent T. Motors' favorite bar, I think, ever. And, well, you got to go Saturday night because we're going to have this big USPKS. Everybody from USPKS is going to come take over the place. And I guess he told me if you stop by the MPG tent, he can get you a drink discount. Xander, you're probably going to have to pace yourself this year if we don't want to repeat it last year.
And we're not going to talk about that on the show. We're good.
We're going to recreate.
But yeah, so it gets pretty
wild.
There's no recreating.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, God. No. I will be drinking some water when we go over to Siebkins on Saturday. We'll be there. The Kart Chaser crew will take everybody out. It is a cool resort over there. So it's a cool town, man. I'm excited to go there. We don't always get to go to this place. I hate that when we go to some of these other series or other tracks that are kind of not out of left field, but out of our comfort zone in the States, that they don't draw as good just because we don't have, as big of a traveling contingent to make up for the lack of the local turnouts at certain places. But I think everybody can, at least on the East Coast, gets tired of Newcastle and GoPro. Everybody out West gets tired of Cal Speed, but they draw. When we get to go to other places, that's super, super cool. So I'm excited to get up because the whole town, the little downtown area in downtown Elkhart Lake, and then, around there's some really nice restaurants. So I'm excited. Chris, you put me on, what was it, last year, a year or two ago, was like that cool Italian place on the water?
Yeah, in Sheboygan. I'm not going to give out my spots, though. I mean,
okay. You don't have to give out the spot.
I got my group that knows the spots everywhere we go. We can start a Discord on that. But no, they're in Sheboygan. There are two very good. One's a pizza place, one's an Italian restaurant. You can probably figure it out for yourself. That are top notch.
Yeah. Well, it'll be cool to get back there. Obviously, thanks to Chris Werheim for joining us here for tonight's episode of KC Happy Hour and the rest of our full-time crew. Guys, we are hitting the road first thing tomorrow morning, or hitting the plains tonight, tomorrow, and into the rest of the week to get everybody into town. It'll be an awesome live broadcast. The big change for this week, which we didn't get to talk about, but we're out of time, is, of course, they're going back to single or qualifying for Saturday and Sunday on Saturday and Sunday. So for everyone working in the paddock area, is not changing as many tires on Friday. We'll get a few more practice sessions. It'll be a cool weekend at one of the coolest racetracks and one of the coolest facilities, I think, in the country when it comes to just a beautiful level, golf course level greens and grassy areas surround. So it's a cool place. If you haven't been out there, you should. You can watch the broadcast if you don't. Until then, guys, thank you for tuning into KC Happy Hour. We will see you guys next week with a bunch of the drivers to debrief everything that'll go down here this weekend.